You ever had a moment where your whole body goes cold like someone just opened a freezer door inside your chest? That was me on March 12, 2021, a Friday morning in Toledo, Ohio, sitting at my little oak kitchen table with a cup of Folgers that had already gone lukewarm. I'm 79 now, but even then I was old enough to know that life doesn't usually hit all at once. It chips at you, gnaws, eats slow. But that morning, no. That morning, it took a damn bite. I logged into my checking account the way my grandson Tyler had shown me, click the blue icon, wait for the spinning circle, breathe slow so you don't lock yourself out by accident. I wasn't expecting fireworks. I just needed to pay my property tax bill for Lucas County. But the number staring back at me, Lord, I still feel the sting. $4,118.67. That's what was left. There had been $97,842.19 in there 2 days earlier. I knew the figure because I'd checked it on March 10th to see if the VA back pay from my disability case had arrived. It had. And now it was gone, every last dollar except for that pitiful $4,000. At first I assumed it was a glitch. I mean, you don't expect a small-town Ohio bank like Great Lakes Federal to just lose nearly $100,000. So I rubbed my eyes, logged out, logged back in. Same number, same punch in the ribs. What in God's name? I muttered, leaning back so hard my chair squeaked. My hands were shaking, the cold, arthritic kind of shake, not panic. The panic came after. I clicked on recent activity, and there it was. Transfers. Not withdrawals, not debit charges. Transfers, 3 of them. All labeled external account ending in 5514. I didn't recognize the number, but I recognized the date. And the time. March 11th, 2:14 a.m. March 11th, 2:27 a.m. March 11th, 2:41 a.m. That was the night Tyler stayed over. He told me he needed a quiet place to study for some certification exam. IT something, I don't remember the letters. He'd been sleeping on my sofa bed for 2 nights, eating my chili, calling me Gramps in that sweet way he used to when he was little. I thought maybe he was growing close again. I thought maybe I was getting a piece of my family back. And there I sat, staring at the proof he'd drained me dry while I snored in the next room. I remember whispering, no, he wouldn't, even though every bone in me knew he could. Maybe that's what hurt more than the money, knowing it wasn't impossible. Knowing I'd seen something in him the past few years, a little distance, a little hunger when he asked about my accounts, a little too much interest in how online banking worked for a kid who claimed he barely used the internet for anything but video games. I pushed away from the table and went straight to the phone, dialed him. No answer. Tried again. Nothing. On the 3rd attempt, he finally picked up. His voice was thick, groggy, fake sleepy. Gramps, you okay? You need to tell me why my bank account is empty. What are you talking about? I'm talking about the $93,000 that got transferred to some account ending in 5514 in the middle of the night. The night you were here. There was silence, long, heavy, guilty silence. Then he said, maybe your bank screwed up. You know how you get confused sometimes. And that was the moment something inside me cracked. I'm old, but I'm not senile. I don't forget things like my own money. And he knew exactly how to twist the knife, using the same words the doctor had used last year when I'd had a medication mix-up. I told him, steady as I could, Tyler, I'm calling the bank. And the police. You better tell me the truth before they do. Jesus, Gramps, he snapped. Don't make this a big thing, it's complicated. Explain it. I just borrowed it. I'm gonna put it back. You don't even use half of it. And there it was. The casual cruelty people think the elderly can't hear because they speak it so softly. Borrowed. Like $93,000 was pocket change. Like my lifetime of saving from factory shifts at the Jeep plant on Stickney Avenue meant nothing. I felt something tighten in my chest, not a heart attack, just anger pulling everything inward. You have one chance to fix this, I said. One. He hung up. That was when I knew I was on my own. Not helpless, though. Never that. I'd survived Vietnam. a back injury that should have ended my working days, and burying my wife in the cold ground behind St. Rose's Church. I could damn well survive this. And I'd get him into a courtroom, even if it killed me. Right before I grabbed my coat to head to the bank, I caught my reflection in the microwave door. Old, tired, betrayed, but not broken. Not yet. You looked like a man with nothing left to lose, I thought. And that's the most dangerous kind. What happened that afternoon at Great Lakes Federal? Well, that was the moment this whole thing truly began to unravel. And it set me on a path I never imagined I'd walk at 80 years old. Before all this, before the bank visits, before the police reports, before the courthouse echoes that still ring in my skull, I want you to understand the life I had. Because none of what came after makes sense unless you see who I was before Tyler hollowed me out like that. I wasn't some lonely hermit with a mattress full of cash. I was a working man, a union man, a man who punched a time card at the Jeep plant for 37 years. I stood on poured concrete so long my knees still bark at me every morning. I raised 2 kids, paid off a small house in West Toledo, and buried a wife who deserved to live 10 more summers. I paid my bills on time, watched Buckeyes football in the fall, and went to the VFW fish fry every first Friday of the month. I lived simple, but I lived steady. And Tyler, well, he wasn't always the kid who stole 93 grand out from under me. I remember him as this scrawny 8-year-old with a cowlick that refused to behave, running across my backyard in grass-stained jeans, yelling, "Gramps, watch this," before launching himself off the old tire swing like he thought gravity worked differently for him. I must have pulled a dozen splinters from his hands, cleaned a dozen scrapes, fed him 100 grilled cheeses at my kitchen counter. His mother, my daughter Elaine, used to say, "Dad, he listens to you more than anyone." And he did, back then. He'd sit on my porch steps, legs swinging, asking about Vietnam in that solemn way kids get when they know something was serious. I never told him everything, no point dragging a kid into that mess, but I told him enough to make him look at me different, like I was stronger than I felt. People grow up though, they harden, and sometimes they drift. The first sign, looking back anyway, showed up around 2018. He'd come over less, stopped calling for birthdays. When he did visit, he seemed distracted, thumb tapping at his phone like he was itching. He'd ask about my retirement, little questions, nothing big. "You got a good pension, right, Gramps? How does your VA disability work? Can you check your bank from your phone, or is that too tricky?" Harmless on the surface, sounded like concern, but something in his voice, it lingered in my mind like a bad cough. One night in 2019, he sat with me in my living room, the TV low, the room smelling faintly of the lemon oil I use on the coffee table. He glanced toward the small fireproof lockbox under my bookshelf. "That where you keep your important stuff?" he asked. I shrugged. "Just paperwork, deed, marriage certificate." "No cash?" "Nope, and even if there was, you're the last one I'd tell." I said it joking, but he just gave this stiff smile. I should have paid more attention to that moment, but you never think betrayal starts that quiet. The truth is, the drift between us didn't come from one blowout or fight. It was like a rope slowly fraying. I blamed myself sometimes. I'm not the warmest man, not after losing Margaret. I don't wear my heart on my sleeve. Maybe Tyler needed something I wasn't giving anymore. Or maybe he saw an old man and an opportunity. I remember the last good day we had before everything fell apart. It was July 4th, 2020, hot enough to fry an egg on the hood of my old 2004 Silverado. He came over with a pack of cheap fireworks from Walmart, half of which fizzled or shot sideways like drunken bees. We sat on lawn chairs while neighborhood kids lit sparklers, the air thick with barbecue smoke and sulfur. "You ever think about selling this place, Gramps?" he asked. I shook my head. "Your grandma loved this house. I'm dying here, not moving." He nodded, quiet, too quiet. Now I see he wasn't thinking about memories, he was thinking about equity. Still, when he hugged me before leaving, he held on a little longer than usual. "Love you, Gramps," he muttered into my shoulder. "Love you too, kid." I meant it. God help me, I still did. I never would have guessed that less than a year later he'd rifle through my finances like a thief in my own home, fingers dancing across my laptop keys while I slept 10 feet away. And here's the thing that still gnaws at me. I didn't protect myself because I didn't think I needed to. He was blood. Blood supposed to mean something. That illusion shattered the moment I walked into Great Lakes Federal later that same day, looking for answers, and finding the first hint that Tyler hadn't just stolen the money. He'd been planning something bigger. But I'm getting ahead of myself. What happened at that bank started a chain reaction that would end with me staring him down in a Lucas County courtroom, watching the color drain from his face as the truth cornered him like a rat. And the moment it began is something I can still picture with perfect clarity. The smell of the bank's air freshener, the scratch of the pen I used to sign the fraud forms, the way the manager's eyes softened when she realized I wasn't confused. I was furious, and I wasn't backing down. When I walked into Great Lakes Federal that afternoon, the automatic doors whooshed open with that weird puff of cold air that always hits you in the chest. The place smelled like toner and cheap lavender, the same smell it had since the 90s. I'd opened my first account there in 1984, back when you'd sign deposit slips with those little pens chained to the counter. I never imagined I'd walk in one day feeling like a man whose life had just been gutted. A young teller named Marissa waved at me. She'd known me for years, always called me Mr. Dalton, even though I told her a dozen times she could call me Jack. She had kind eyes, not the polite type, the real kind. When she saw my face, her smile faltered. "Mr. Dalton, are you all right?" I shook my head and slid my debit card across the counter. "My account's been emptied, all but 4,000, transfers I didn't make." She took the card like it was something fragile, typed a few things, then frowned at the screen. "Sir, let me get a supervisor." There it was, the first crack running through the lie Tyler tried to feed me. The look on her face told me everything. This wasn't some glitch. A man named Jeffrey Price came out from behind the frosted glass office. Gray suit, polished shoes. He had that banker's walk, slow, measured, like he didn't want to startle a customer into smelling fear. "Let's sit down together," he said gently, motioning me toward a small office. Inside, I gave him the rundown, Tyler visiting, the 3 transfers, the times. My voice shook once, just once, but I swallowed it back. I wasn't going to fall apart in front of this man. I wanted clarity, not pity. Jeffrey pulled up the account history, and I could tell by the tightening around his mouth that it was bad. "Mr. Dalton, these transfers were authenticated from your device. Same IP address you normally use, same login credentials, and the external account, 5,514, it was added and verified with your security code." I frowned. "Security code?" "Yes, sir. A text message would have been sent to your phone for confirmation." I stared at him, heart thudding. "A text? On my phone? Except I hadn't seen one. Unless—" "Can you check what time the text was sent?" I asked. He scrolled. 2:13 a.m. March 11th. My throat dried up. I was asleep. "Is it possible someone else?" "Yes," I cut him off. "My grandson, he was here, slept on my couch." Jeffrey nodded slowly, sympathy flickering in his eyes. "Mr. Dalton, I can freeze your account, flag the transfers as potential fraud, and start a claim. But I need you to understand something. When fraud happens from inside the home, the process is complicated." That word again. Complicated. Tyler's word. "What does that mean?" I asked. "It means the bank needs evidence, strong evidence, and law enforcement involvement." I leaned back, feeling the weight settle on me like wet sand. "He stole from me. Isn't that enough?" Jeffrey hesitated before answering. "Family cases are the hardest. Many are retracted. Many are emotional, but we'll help you. I'll file the initial report and provide the documentation you'll need." I exhaled through my nose, shaky but determined. "Do it." While he printed forms, my phone buzzed. A text from Tyler. "Don't go overboard, Gramps. We can talk." Then another. "If you report this, it gets messy. Just wait." I stared at the screen, my jaw tightening. He hadn't even bothered to hide it. He was sure I'd fold, sure I'd protect him, sure that old Jack wouldn't make a fuss. Jeffrey noticed my face. Bad news. I handed him the phone. He read the messages, his eyebrows lifting in a way that said he'd seen this before, too many times probably. "This helps," he said quietly, "if this escalates." When he said if, I heard when. I signed the fraud packet. Each stroke of the pen felt like a funeral, not for the money, but for the boy I'd helped raise. The boy who used to sit on my knee and trace the scars on my arm from Vietnam, asking, "Did it hurt, Gramps?" It did then. It did now. As I slid the paperwork back across the table, Jeffrey said something that stuck with me. "You know, in these cases, the offender usually slips up again. It's rarely a one-time thing. Just be prepared." "Prepared how?" I asked. "Keep track of everything. Messages, calls, behavior. You may need it later." Later. A simple word. But it landed heavy. I walked out of the bank into the cold March air, the kind that cuts through your jacket and stings your cheeks. My truck sat in the lot, a dusting of pollen on the windshield, same as every spring, but nothing about the world felt normal. When I climbed in and closed the door, the silence hit me harder than the news had. Because sitting there, gripping the steering wheel, I realized something I hadn't wanted to admit. I didn't just lose the money. I lost Tyler. And deep down, I sensed this wasn't going to end with a frozen account or a bank claim. There was more to this, something I hadn't uncovered yet, something Tyler was hiding. Because kids don't wake up one day and decide to steal $93,000 from their grandfather. No, that kind of thing has roots, secrets, maybe debts, maybe desperation. But whatever it was, I wasn't done. Not by a long shot. And the first real sign of what was coming next arrived that same night, just after sundown, when someone knocked on my door, slow, hesitant, the kind of knock that carries bad news. Part of me already knew who it was. It was just past 8 that night when the knock came, 3 slow taps that barely echoed through the hallway. I was sitting in my recliner, the TV on but the volume low, not really watching anything. My mind kept circling those bank transfers like a buzzard over roadkill. When I heard the knock, something in my gut tightened. Not fear exactly, more like recognition. Bad news has a rhythm. You learn it with age. I pushed myself up, knees cracking loud enough to startle the old floorboards. When I opened the door, I expected maybe Tyler, sheepish and jittery, ready to spin some half-hearted apology. Or maybe Elaine, trying to smooth things over like she always did when Tyler screwed up as a kid. But it wasn't family on my porch. It was Officer Danielle Reyes from the Toledo Police Department. Mid-30s, dark hair and a tight bun, patrol jacket zipped high against the wind. I'd seen her around before. She patrolled our neighborhood sometimes. But standing there under my porch light, hands tucked into her gloves, she looked like someone bracing herself. "Mr. Dalton?" she asked. I nodded, heart starting to thud. "Everything all right, officer?" She let out a small breath. "We got a call tonight. I'm here because your grandson Tyler reported you." I just stared at her. "He what?" She pulled a folded printout from her pocket. "He claimed you threatened him over the phone today. Said you were confused, angry, and might be a danger to yourself or others." I actually laughed, one short, stunned bark. Danger to myself. He stole $93,000 from me. Her eyes softened. The kind of soft that said she'd heard plenty of lies in her career and wasn't eager to swallow another one. "That's why I wanted to speak to you in person," she said quietly. "Dispatch didn't send me for an arrest. They sent me for a welfare check. I wanted to see things for myself before escalating anything." I stepped back. "Come in, please." She followed me into the living room, glancing around with the instinctive eye of a cop cataloging details. Photos on shelves, my VA paperwork on the coffee table, the bank folder half open, my jacket tossed over the arm of the chair. Nothing about the place said danger. Nothing said confusion. Just an old man trying to make sense of a betrayal. She sat on the edge of the couch. "Can you tell me your side?" So I told her. Everything, the transfers, the texts, Tyler's voice on the phone, the way he spun the word confused like it was a weapon. When I finished, she didn't reach for her radio. She didn't scribble accusations. She leaned her elbows on her knees and said, "Mr. Dalton, this kind of elder abuse report is more common than you'd think, especially when money's involved." "He tried to flip it on me," I muttered. "He's covering himself." She nodded. "That's exactly what it looks like." But she wasn't done. She lowered her voice. "There's something else you need to know. Tyler didn't just call 911. He tried to file a statement about you being mentally unfit. He asked how to initiate a safety hold. He even mentioned dementia." The word hit me like someone slammed my chest with a cinder block. Dementia. That wasn't just a lie, that was strategy. "That boy is trying to paint me as incompetent," I whispered. "If he does that, the bank might deny my claim." "That's correct," she said softly. "But the good news is none of his statements match what I'm seeing here. You're coherent, clear, organized. I'm filing this as unfounded." I sank into my recliner, the leather sighing under my weight. "He's trying to trap me, officer. Legally, financially, I don't know why." She paused before answering. "Mr. Dalton, I checked Tyler's name once I parked outside. He has 2 red flags on file." My stomach clenched. "What kind of flags?" "One is a small complaint from a neighbor, nothing actionable. The other," she hesitated, "there's an ongoing investigation into a credit card ring involving a group of younger adults. Tyler's name isn't on the main report, but it appears in the notes." A cold ripple ran down my spine. "You're telling me he might be mixed up in something criminal?" "I'm telling you it's possible. He stole your money for reasons beyond personal greed." I sat there, gripping the arm of my chair so hard my knuckles paled. The betrayal wasn't just about the money anymore. It was deeper, meaner, like he'd been slipping away into some dark corner of his life I never saw, or maybe refused to see. The officer stood, pulling a card from her pocket. "This is my direct number. If he contacts you in any threatening way or tries another report, call me, day or night." I took the card. "Thank you, really." She started for the door but paused with her hand on the knob. "Mr. Dalton, if you're willing, I suggest you talk to someone in financial crimes, not just the bank. A detective. You need a record started now, not later." "Why?" Her eyes met mine, steady and serious. "Because cases like this escalate, and when they do, the paper trail decides who the system believes." After she left, the house fell into that late-night silence where you hear your own heartbeat louder than anything else. I stood there in the doorway long after her cruiser pulled away, watching the empty street, the glow of the street lamp over the corner mailbox, the faint shimmer of frost starting to form on the lawns. And that's when my phone buzzed again. One new message from Tyler. "You brought the cops seriously, you're losing it." No apology. No explanation. Just arrogance. I stared at the screen until the words blurred, then whispered to myself, "He wants a war." And God help me, if it was a war he wanted, I wasn't going to fight it blind. But before I could go after him, before I could figure out how deep this hole went, something happened the next morning that made the truth snap into place like a trap. And it made me realize Tyler hadn't just stolen from me. He'd prepared for it. I didn't sleep that night. Not one damn minute. I sat in my recliner with the TV off, watching the digital clock on the cable box crawl through the early hours like it was dragging a dead weight. Every time I shut my eyes, I saw those transfer timestamps. 2:14 a.m., 2:27 a.m., 2:41 a.m. Saw Tyler's silhouette standing over my laptop while I snored 10 feet away. Saw the officer's face when she told me he'd tried to report me. The part that dug deepest wasn't even the theft. It was the manipulation. The way he twisted my old medication mishap into a weapon. The way he used the word dementia like it was a trapdoor beneath my feet. By the time the sky started to lighten behind the neighbor's maple tree, I felt hollow. Not sad, not angry, empty, like the inside of me had been scraped out with a dull spoon. Around 6:30, I made myself some toast I never ate and started sorting papers on the kitchen table, bank records, VA letters, old tax returns. I didn't even know what I was looking for. I just needed to feel like I had something solid in my hands. That's when I got the email. It came from Great Lakes Federal. I opened it expecting more fraud documentation, maybe a confirmation of the freeze Jeffrey had placed on my account. Instead, my stomach dropped. It was a notification confirming a pending automatic transfer for the following week, not one I scheduled, not anything I recognized. It was set to move another $1,200 from my Social Security deposit to that same external account ending in 5514. He hadn't just taken the $93,000. He had set up a recurring siphon. I read the line 3 times before my hands started shaking. Next scheduled transfer, March 18th, 8:00 a.m. He planned for this to continue long after the big haul, like it was income, like I was some pipeline he could quietly drain while living his life unfazed. That was the moment the emptiness inside me twisted into something darker, cold resolve, the kind I hadn't felt since I was 19 years old, crouched behind a rusted-out truck in a village outside Quang Tri. Back then, it had been survival. Now it felt like something else, a fire catching in old bones. I picked up the phone and dialed Elaine. It rang 4 times before she answered, voice scratchy. "Dad, it's early. What's going on?" I could barely get the words out. "Your son stole from me." She was quiet for a beat and then let out a soft, disbelieving laugh. "Tyler, Dad, no. He said you were confused yesterday." "Don't say that word to me." My voice cracked sharp enough to make her inhale. She tried again, slower. "Dad, he told me you thought he took something, but you must have misread. I have bank records, transfers, times. Tyler was here. He set up a recurring transfer. He reported me to the police." She went silent, long silent. Then in a small voice I hadn't heard since she was 16, "Oh God." "Yeah," I whispered, "Oh God." "I'll talk to him," she said. "No, you won't." I steadied my breath. "He's already lying to protect himself. If you tell him I know more, he'll run or cover his tracks. I'm handling this." "Dad, you're 79. You shouldn't have to fight something like this." "Well, I am, because he sure as hell didn't think twice about stealing from me." She sniffled. "He's not a bad kid. He stole $93,000. I know, Dad, maybe he's in trouble. Maybe someone's pressuring him." "I'm not covering for him," I said. "Not this time." "I didn't say cover." "Yes, you did," I said gently. "You always do." And that was the end of that conversation. She didn't call back. The next few days blurred into a kind of waking fog. I canceled the recurring transfer with the bank, who flagged it as further fraudulent activity. They reminded me again, politely, that these investigations take time, especially when family is involved. I hated that word, family. It's supposed to mean loyalty, not leverage. I spent the next 3 days barely leaving the house. I made coffee I didn't drink. I showered once. I watched rain streak across the living room window while my phone buzzed every few hours with messages I refused to open. They were all from Tyler. "You're ruining things. You don't understand what's happening. Stop making a scene. We can fix this if you stop acting crazy." That last one, crazy, that one hit deep. I sat with the message open on my phone, staring at it, feeling that word sink claws into my skin. He wanted a narrative. He wanted the world to believe the old man was confused, volatile, slipping. He wanted to discredit me before I ever walked into a court. And I realized something sharp and awful. He wasn't panicking. He was confident. People don't get confident like that unless they have plans. On the 4th evening, rain still tapping the windows, I was rummaging through a box in my closet where I kept old legal documents, my will, Margaret's death certificate, the house deed, when I found something that made my lungs stop cold. It was a form, printed, neatly folded, already filled out, an application for power of attorney. And the signature line, my signature, was a near-perfect forgery, shaky but close enough that someone who didn't know me well might accept it. But the name on the line granting authority. My vision tunneled. My hands went numb. For a second, I thought I might pass out right there on the bedroom carpet. He wasn't just stealing money. He wasn't just covering tracks. He was building a legal structure around me like a cage, making me look incompetent, confused, unstable, so he could justify taking everything. The house, my pension, my VA benefits, my funeral savings, my autonomy. This wasn't a one-night mistake. It was premeditated. And for the first time, I felt genuinely afraid, not of Tyler physically, but of what someone like him could do to a man my age with one forged signature and a few well-placed lies. When I came back to the living room, I sat in silence until the room grew dim. My hands rested on my knees, palms up, the way I used to sit in the barracks before deployment, thinking about whether I'd make it back. I whispered out loud to nobody, "How did we get here?" Maybe I should have seen it earlier. Maybe I ignored the signs. Maybe loving someone makes you blind and trusting them makes you stupid. But sitting in that dim little room, I understood something. Tyler wasn't a lost kid. He was a predator. And I was his mark. By the time midnight rolled around, the fear inside me had hardened into something else. Something sharper. Something that pushed me up out of that chair and made me walk to the kitchen drawer where I kept a small spiral notebook. I opened it, wrote one word at the top of the first page in shaky blue ink. This wasn't grief anymore. This wasn't confusion. This wasn't despair. This was the beginning of a plan. And somewhere in the dark, with rain still ticking against the glass, I realized something Officer Reyes said the night she stood in my doorway. The paper trail decides who the system believes. So that's what I'd build, piece by piece, moment by moment, a trail so damning it would carve the truth straight into the courtroom floor. Tyler had taken everything from me. But he'd given me something, too. A reason. A purpose. A fight. And I swear to you, the fire that lit in me that night, I hadn't felt anything like it in decades. I started the next morning stiff as a fence post, my lower back aching from falling asleep in the recliner with that spiral notebook still open on my lap. The word timeline stared back at me in blue ballpoint ink, like a dare. I rubbed my eyes, took a long breath, and forced myself upright. I wasn't young, but I wasn't dead yet, and I sure as hell wasn't done. The first thing I did was open the curtains. Sunlight spilled across the living room floor, catching the dust in the air. It felt like the house itself was waking up with me. I made a pot of coffee and sat at the kitchen table, flipping open the notebook. I wrote the dates I knew by heart. March 10, balance confirmed, 97,842.19. March 11, Tyler stays over. March 11, transfers 3 made between 2:14 to 2:41 a.m. March 12, bank visit, freeze placed. March 12, Tyler's texts, "Don't go overboard." March 12, police visit, false report found. March 13, automatic transfer discovered. March 14, forged POA located. Seeing it written out like that, it turned my stomach. You know how something hurts more once you see it in writing, like the truth sinks deeper. But it also sharpened me. I started flipping back, adding details, screenshots of texts printed off my old HP printer, copies of the bank forms, dates, times, every tiny thing. By 10 a.m., that notebook had a skeleton. What it needed next was muscle. The first call I made wasn't to the bank. It wasn't to the police either. It was to Rosa, the night shift nurse at the VA clinic, someone who'd helped me through 2 rough winters and a stubborn pneumonia that almost took me out in 2016. She'd always had a good head on her shoulders, and she'd seen enough elder abuse in her line of work to fill a courthouse. Her voice came through warm and steady. "Mr. Dalton, you okay?" For the first time in days, I let myself soften just a hair. "Rosa, I need advice, not medical, legal, personal." "I'm listening," she said. So I told her everything, the money, the forged power of attorney, the false report Tyler filed, all of it. When I finished, she didn't gasp or sugarcoat. She breathed out slowly, a long, thoughtful sound. "I've seen this exact pattern," she said. When money is stolen, they try to create a narrative that the elder is confused. It's a two-step trap. Trap, I muttered. Hearing her say it made it feel real. The good news, she continued, is that you're early. He hasn't filed the POA yet. Once he does, untangling it takes months. I ran a hand over my face. I need to get ahead of him. You do, she said, and I know someone who can help. She works with seniors dealing with financial exploitation. Legal aid volunteer, real sharp woman. I felt something flicker in my chest, hope, small but alive. Give me her name. Margaret Chen. Chen, the attorney. The one, Rosa said. She's helped 3 veterans I know. Retired from a big firm, now she volunteers 3 days a week. She's relentless. That last word, relentless, sat well with me. Tyler had been relentless in his own way. Maybe I needed someone who matched fire with fire. Rosa gave me Margaret's number and I thanked her. Before hanging up, she added softly, Mr. Dalton, you're not alone, even if it feels like it. I swallowed hard. Thank you, Rosa, really. I dialed Margaret next. Her voice was crisp, no nonsense, the kind of voice that made you straighten in your chair even if she couldn't see you. This is Margaret. Miss Chen, my name is Jack Dalton. A nurse named Rosa gave me your number. I believe I'm the victim of elder financial abuse. There was no pity in her response, just purpose. Tell me everything. I told her the entire timeline. She stopped me twice to clarify the dates, once more to ask how Tyler accessed my laptop. When I finished, she said something I'll never forget. This is not just theft, she said. This is coordinated exploitation. He attempted to establish guardianship through false incapacity. Meaning he prepped the ground to legally control you. The forged power of attorney is felony level if proven. I tightened my grip on the phone. What do I do now? You gather, she said. Every message, every screenshot, every form you found. Print copies, make a binder. We're building a case. I've already started, I said quietly. Good, that will save us time. Next, you'll need to document your mental competency. I'll schedule you for a cognitive evaluation with a VA doctor. That shuts down any claim that you're incompetent. That's good, I said, ashamed at how much relief washed over me. And she continued, I want you to get a handwritten statement down tonight. Your version, unfiltered. Don't worry about grammar, just everything you remember. I'll help you organize it later. I can do that. Then she added, one more thing. Do not contact Tyler again. I blinked, but if he calls, don't answer. If you respond emotionally, he'll twist it. Let him think you're retreating. We want him comfortable. Comfortable people make sloppy criminals. I nodded even though she couldn't see it. All right. We meet Monday, she said. Bring everything. And just like that, I had someone in my corner. The next few hours were a blur of motion, printing texts, jotting down memories, copying bank logs, organizing everything into that binder Margaret told me to create. I worked for hours without noticing time pass. When my back finally twinged and forced me to stand, I realized I'd been at that table since morning. Pages lay spread out like battle plans. Notes, dates, evidence. It wasn't pretty, but it was mine. Around dusk, while I sat reviewing the binder, my phone rang again. Tyler, I didn't answer. Let it go to voicemail. Then it rang again. And again. The 4th time he switched to text. Why are you ignoring me? We can fix this. I'm trying to help you. Don't make this worse for both of us. I stared at the phone. Margaret's advice echoed in my mind. Let him think you're retreating. So I put the phone face down on the table and went back to my timeline. But something happened around 9 o'clock that I didn't expect. A car pulled into my driveway, slow, quiet. The headlights washed across the front windows. I tensed, unsure if it was Tyler or Elaine or someone worse. When the engine shut off, I saw a familiar silhouette step out. Officer Reyes. She walked up to my porch with a folder tucked under her arm. When I opened the door, she gave me a small, firm nod. I thought you should see this, she said. What is it? A copy of your grandson's full statement from the night he reported you. I got permission from my supervisor because, well, there are inconsistencies. Inconsistencies. I didn't know it yet, but that folder she handed me contained the first crack that would eventually corner Tyler in the courtroom, the moment where his lies folded in on themselves. And the second I opened it, I understood. This wasn't just my fight anymore. It was becoming bigger than family, bigger than emotions, bigger than $93,000. It was a case, a real one, and I wasn't going into it alone. When Officer Reyes handed me that folder on my porch, the air felt colder than it should have for March. I invited her in, out of habit and out of something else too, a sense that she wasn't there as a uniform tonight, but as someone who'd quietly taken a side. She stepped into the living room, shutting the door behind her, and I could feel the tension on her. It clung to her shoulders like a wet jacket. She handed me the folder without a word. The weight of it surprised me, 5, maybe 6 pages clipped together. I didn't open it right away. Instead, I looked at her face, and what I saw there made my stomach drop. "You're not going to like what you read," she said. "Nothing about this has been likable so far." She gave a sad little smirk. "Fair point." I sat down at the kitchen table, the binder Margaret told me to make still spread open. All my evidence, all my notes, all my truths. Officer Reyes stood to the side, arms crossed, watching with that steady police stillness. I opened the folder and the first page hit me right between the ribs. Tyler's statement, typed neatly, timestamped, signed. It read like a script. He described me as increasingly unstable. Claimed I'd been forgetting important things, including passwords, dates, and conversations. Said I'd accused him of stealing before, when nothing had happened. Mentioned a dangerous temper. And this one made my jaw tight. Claimed I once threatened to harm myself. None of it true. Not a damn word. Then near the bottom, a line that caught me like a barb. "I'm worried my grandfather is vulnerable to scams or delusions. I just want to protect him." Protect him? I felt my pulse thudding at my temples. Officer Reyes must have seen something in my face because she pulled out the chair across from me. "There's more," she said gently. "Look at page 3. I turned the page and saw another document, an online form submission. A few boxes were checked. One caught my eye. Elder at risk of financial mismanagement. He wasn't just defending himself. He was building a framework, brick by brick, trying to get ahead of the story, trying to paint me into a corner where any accusation I made looked like confusion. "He filed this before he even knew you talked to the bank," Officer Reyes said quietly. "Minutes before, actually." I stared at the printout, stunned. "He planned this," I whispered, "down to the minute." "Yes." "Why come after me? Why so hard?" She hesitated, then said, "Sometimes, when people get in deep debt, criminal activity, whatever, they target the person least likely to fight back. I'm not that person." Her eyes softened. "I know, but he didn't." We sat in a long silence. The clock ticked behind us. Somewhere down the street a dog barked once, then nothing. Just the two of us in that small kitchen, surrounded by evidence of a war I never asked for. Finally she said, "Mr. Dalton, Margaret Chen is the best you're going to find for this, and she'll need that." She motioned to the folder. "Every lie he wrote becomes your leverage." Leverage? Funny how the word felt foreign in my mouth, like something I shouldn't have to use against my own blood. Officer Reyes stood to leave. At the door she paused. "One last thing. I can't tell you what to feel about your grandson, but I can tell you nothing in his report suggests confusion on your part. It only suggests he's desperate." Desperate. That part stuck. After she left, the house felt different, not smaller, not emptier, but loaded. Like every quiet corner was storing something, some pressure or truth or threat. I sat at the table, reading and rereading Tyler's lies until my eyes burned. And somewhere in that hour, something clicked. I wasn't just responding anymore. I was preparing. The next morning, Sunday, I woke before dawn, made strong coffee, rolled my stiff shoulder, put on my old denim jacket, and I drove. Not to the VA. Not to the police. Not to the bank. To Home Depot. I walked the aisle slower than usual, pushing a cart with one stubborn wheel. Picked up a small motion-activated camera, one of those basic models that backs up to a memory card. Then two more. The clerk didn't blink. Folks my age buy those things all the time to keep raccoons off their trash cans or check on who's stealing Amazon packages. But I wasn't buying protection. I was buying proof. When I got home, I installed them with hands that shook but didn't stop. One above the back door, one inside the living room aimed at the laptop desk, one outside near the driveway angled toward the windows. If Tyler tried to come back to gather more evidence, to stage something, to take something, anything, I'd have it frame by frame. By noon, I sat back down with my binder and the folder Officer Reyes delivered, sorted everything, highlighted, dated. I wrote small notes in the margins. Lie. Contradiction. Intentional misdirection. Inconsistent timeline. Hours passed, the sun dipped. By evening, the shadows stretched across my table like long arms. And then, without warning, the phone rang again. Not Tyler this time. Margaret. Her voice was brisk but warmer than before. Jack, I've reviewed what you emailed me. You did excellent work. I emailed too much, I said with a tired chuckle. Half of it probably didn't make sense. It made perfect sense. And I'll tell you something important. The forged power of attorney changes everything. My pulse kicked. How? Because it shows intent, she said. Stealing money might be spun as panic, impulse, a mistake, but forging legal control over you, that's premeditated. Judges don't forgive that. I exhaled shakily. That's good to hear. We're going to build a wall around you, she continued, voice firm. VA evaluation, financial record freeze, a sworn affidavit, and then we'll confront him with the evidence in a controlled setting. A setting? In my office, she said, neutral ground and with an audio recorder running. I stiffened. You want him there? Yes, and trust me, once we lay out what we know, he will either confess or lie. Either way, we win. I rubbed my face. Margaret, I don't know if I'm ready to face him. You're absolutely ready. You've done more groundwork than most victims ever manage, and besides, her tone softened. You're not facing him alone. I swallowed hard. Okay. Monday at 10, she said. Bring everything and Jack. Yeah. You should know, people like Tyler usually slip before the meeting. They react. They panic. They contact the victim in some rash attempt to get ahead of things. He's already tried. I mean bigger, watch your phone tonight, and don't answer anything. When she hung up, the house fell silent again, the kind of silence that feels like a held breath. I sat there in that dim kitchen, binder open, pages spread out like battlefield maps, the cameras quietly recording from the corners of the house. And I realized the truth. For the first time since this ordeal began, Tyler wasn't dictating the next move. I was. But what I didn't know yet was that he was about to make a mistake, one so reckless, so stupid, so revealing, that it would become the first nail in the coffin of his courtroom confession. And it happened before the sun even came up. I didn't sleep the night before the meeting with Margaret. I tried. God knows I tried. But my mind wouldn't shut off. It kept replaying every moment. Tyler at the kitchen table, Tyler calling me confused, Tyler's lies in that police statement. So I stayed in the recliner again, blanket over my legs, the cameras quietly recording from their corners like silent witnesses. It was around 4:12 a.m. when my phone buzzed on the side table. Not a ring, just a text, the kind that lights up the room for half a second. I thought about ignoring it the way Margaret told me to, but something in my gut pulled me toward it. It was Tyler. We need to talk, I'm coming over. My chest went tight. It wasn't a question, it was a declaration. I stared at the message for a long minute, listening for any sound outside, the driveway, gravel, footsteps, anything. The house was quiet. Another message came through. Don't do anything stupid tomorrow. We can fix this before lawyers get involved. Before lawyers get involved. So he knew. Either he'd guessed or someone had tipped him off. Maybe Elaine. Maybe one of those kids he ran with. Maybe he'd seen the bank activity logs as they escalated the investigation. I didn't answer. Margaret's voice rang in my head. Do not engage him. Let him speak into the darkness. Then the phone buzzed again. Look, Gramps, you're making this harder than it needs to be. I didn't steal anything. You gave me access. You don't remember. I said nothing. 5 minutes passed. Then, if you keep pushing this, I'll have to prove you're not mentally competent. Please don't make me do that. That one hit like a shovel to the gut. I set the phone down. My hands were shaking, not from fear but from the kind of anger that simmers low and steady, the kind that changes something fundamental inside a person. I got up, walked into the kitchen, poured myself half a cup of cold coffee, drank it anyway. The bitterness felt honest. When dawn finally crept over the rooftops on Monday, March 15th, the sky was washed out gray. I dressed slow, jeans, my old flannel, my heavier coat. The Silverado took a few clunky turns before the engine caught. I sat for a moment, hands on the wheel, breathing deep. My reflection in the rearview mirror looked older than I felt inside. Before I pulled out of the driveway, I checked the cameras by popping out the memory cards one by one and sliding them into the little viewer screen. I wasn't expecting much. I'd only installed them the day before. But at 3:47 a.m., one of the outside cameras caught something. A silhouette. On my driveway. Hood up. Standing close to my truck. The footage was grainy in the low light, but the posture, that slight forward lean, the way the hands jammed too deep into the pockets, that was Tyler. I knew it like I knew my own reflection. He walked to my mailbox, hesitated, then pulled something out of his jacket pocket and stuffed it inside. I froze. I replayed it. Once. Twice. A third time. He wasn't breaking in. He wasn't vandalizing. He was planting something. And the son of a bitch timed it at night so it would look like I'd retrieved the mail myself in the morning, clueless to what had been slipped inside. I put the memory card back into the camera, grabbed my coat, and walked straight to the mailbox. The air was icy, biting at my cheeks. When I opened the metal door, a single envelope lay inside. Not a bill, not junk mail. A plain white envelope with my name scrawled in marker. I carried it inside, set it on the kitchen table, and stared at it for a long minute. My fingers felt thick when I finally picked it up and tore it open. Inside was a printed form. Guardianship petition, preliminary grounds. And under concerns regarding capacity, someone had checked. Memory decline. Erratic financial behavior. Endangerment to self. Confusion regarding property ownership. Every box designed to portray me as an incompetent old man who needed someone, Tyler, to take control. My throat tightened. I sat down hard, the chair scraping across tile. The paper trembled in my hand. He hadn't filed it yet. The date was blank, but he'd prepared it, signed it, put it in my mailbox so he could claim later that I forgot we discussed it, or worse, that I'd agreed. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I didn't even curse. I just sat there staring at the signature he forged, mine. And I whispered, "You don't get to take my life from me." When I finally pulled into the lot outside Margaret Chen's office at 9:52 a.m., the folder Officer Reyes gave me sat on the passenger seat. The binder was beside it. The envelope from the mailbox was tucked into the front pocket. My heart was hammering, not from fear, but from the weight of what I carried. Margaret met me in the lobby, petite woman in her 60s, sharp eyes, dark blazer, the kind of presence that could cut glass. "You're early," she said. I needed to be. She motioned me into a small conference room with old wood paneling and a long table. She sat across from me and opened her notebook. "Before Tyler arrives," she said, "I need to review what you brought." I slid the mailbox envelope across the table. Her expression didn't change much, but the tightening around her jaw told me everything. "He planted this?" she asked. Between 3 and 4 this morning, I said. I have it on camera. She tapped the envelope once with her finger. Jack, this is felony-level manipulation, and it's the dumbest thing he could have done. He thinks he's clever, but he's sloppy. This will devastate him in court. I'm not trying to devastate him, I said quietly. I just want my life back. I understand, she said, but people who do this don't stop. They double down, and Tyler is about to walk into a room where every lie he told is about to meet the truth. She closed the envelope, set her jaw, and glanced at the clock. 10 minutes, she said. That's when he's scheduled. My palms went cold. Jack, listen to me, she said, leaning forward. You don't confront him, you don't argue, you don't react. You let him talk, you let him dig. My job is to lead him straight into the truth. I nodded slowly. Then she added softer. And Jack, whatever happens in this room, you need to remember something. He chose this path, not you. We sat in silence for a minute, just the old wall clock ticking above the window. Then there was a knock on the door. Soft, polite, practiced. Tyler. I felt something deep in my chest settle into place, not peace exactly, but something colder, a kind of clarity. Margaret stood, smoothed her blazer, and opened the door. Tyler stepped inside, hands shoved in the pockets of his hoodie, expression tight, but smug enough for me to see the crack underneath. He didn't look at Margaret first. He looked at me. Gramps, he said, trying on that soft tone he used when he wanted something. We can talk this out. But I saw something in his eyes I hadn't seen before. Fear. Margaret gestured him to sit. He did. I folded my hands on the table. And with the recorder quietly blinking to life beside Margaret's notepad, Tyler opened his mouth and began the lie that would unravel everything he'd built. The moment Tyler sat down across from me in Margaret's little conference room, I could smell the cheap cologne he always drowned himself in when he was nervous. It had that synthetic bite to it, something he probably grabbed from the clearance rack at Walmart. He tried to sit casual, leaning back with one leg crossed over the other, but the foot was bouncing. I saw it right away. He was rattled. Margaret didn't offer him coffee, didn't offer him small talk, didn't even smile. She just clicked her pen once, opened a legal pad, and said, Tyler, we're going to have a conversation today about the financial irregularities involving your grandfather's accounts. He let out a breathy laugh through his nose. I'd seen him do it before, mostly when he was cornering someone in an argument but trying to play it cool. Yeah, okay, he said. Look, let's just clear this up. Gramps has been confused lately, and I think he's mixing things up. I never stole anything. He looked at me when he said that, waiting for me to flinch or push back. I didn't give him the satisfaction. I kept my face still, hands folded in my lap, the way Margaret told me. She didn't even blink. Tyler, let's start with the 3 transfers made from Mr. Dalton's account on March 11th between 2:14 and 2:41 a.m. He shrugged. He let me use his laptop that night. Maybe he forgot. He forgets a lot these days. Margaret clicked the pen again. Mr. Dalton, do you forget a lot? I gave the same answer she and I rehearsed, calm and steady. I remember what matters. She nodded, then turned back to Tyler. And can you explain why the external account receiving those funds belongs to you? His composure cracked just slightly, just enough for me to notice the twitch at the corner of his mouth. He forced a smile. We share expenses sometimes. He gives me money to help with repairs and errands. It's normal. Is it normal? Margaret asked, sliding a printed bank document toward him, for someone to give you $93,000 at 3 in the morning? He swallowed. His Adam's apple bobbed once, twice. Then he leaned forward, voice low, like he thought getting quiet made him sound reasonable. You're making this too dramatic. It wasn't like that. I had access because he asked me to help him with online banking. Margaret didn't argue. She was too smart for that. Instead, she picked up the envelope he'd planted in my mailbox and set it gently on the table between them. Explain this. Tyler froze. For a second, he didn't breathe. Didn't blink. Didn't move. He stared at the envelope as if it were a weapon. "What is that?" he asked, playing stupid. "You know what it is," she said. "A guardianship petition, signed, prepared, placed in Mr. Dalton's mailbox at approximately 3:47 a.m. this morning." His eyes shot to me, then back to her. "That's ridiculous. I didn't put anything." Margaret reached into a little folder beside her and pulled out a printed screenshot from the camera feed. The grainy but unmistakable image of Tyler standing near my mailbox in the darkness. I watched the color drain from his face. It was slow at first, then all at once, like someone pulled a plug in him. His mouth opened slightly. No words came out. "That's not me," he muttered finally. Margaret raised an eyebrow. "Shall we enhance the footage and bring it to the police? They already have your prior false statement on file." That hit him hard. His jaw tightened. His voice came back sharper. "This is insane. You're twisting everything." He's confused. "He told me I could manage things for him. I was helping him. He just doesn't remember." When he said that, something inside me snapped. Not loud, not obvious, but clean. Like a piece of ice breaking on a river. I leaned forward, looked right into his eyes, and said quietly, "Tyler, I remember everything." He blinked fast. His breathing quickened. And I saw it right there in his face, the moment he realized he wasn't in control anymore. Margaret pulled another document from her folder, sliding it toward him. The forged power of attorney. His signature. My forged signature. Clear as day. His voice cracked. Gramps, listen, I was gonna file that only if things got worse with you." "With me," I said softly, "or with you?" He flinched like I slapped him. We didn't talk about the credit card ring or his debts or whatever hole he dug himself into. We didn't need to. His silence filled in every blank space. Margaret wrote something on her pad, tore the sheet carefully, and placed it in front of him. "This is your opportunity," she said. "Your one opportunity to take responsibility before this goes to the Lucas County prosecutor. If you continue denying, the consequences will be far more severe." He stared at the paper. His breathing got louder, ragged. His knee bounced uncontrollably. He looked at me again, and for the first time in a long time I didn't see my grandson. I saw a scared young man who thought he was smarter than everyone else, until the world finally caught up with him. "Gramps," he said, voice cracking around the edges, "please don't do this." I swallowed the lump in my throat. "You already did." Margaret folded her hands. "Tyler, are you ready to tell the truth?" He hesitated, one long trembling moment. Then he broke. The words came out in a rush, messy and panicked. "Fine, okay, I took it. I took the damn money. But I was gonna put it back, Gramps, I swear. I just needed time." "Keep talking," Margaret said calmly. "It wasn't supposed to be this big," he rambled. "I thought he wouldn't notice. He never checks things. And then when he did, I panicked. But I didn't mean for it to go this far." He was unraveling so fast he didn't even realize the recorder on the table was blinking red. "I only forged the papers because I thought he'd freak out if I explained. He panics, he forgets. He gets stuff wrong. I was protecting myself." Margaret lifted a hand. "Let's stop there." Tyler's face crumpled. He looked at me as if waiting for me to save him. The strange thing was, I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel vindicated. I just felt tired, bone-deep tired. His confession didn't feel like winning. It felt like losing something I could never get back. Margaret pressed the stop button on the recorder. "Thank you, Tyler. This will be submitted as part of the evidence package." "What happens now?" he whispered. She looked at him, calm as a surgeon. "Now," she said, "we begin formal proceedings." When Tyler finally left, shoulders hunched, eyes red, walking like a man carrying too much weight, I didn't watch him go. I couldn't. I kept my eyes on the table, on the recorder, on the evidence binder I'd built with shaking hands. Margaret sat down beside me. "Jack, are you all right?" I nodded slowly. "It's not the justice that hurts," I said. "It's the cost." She didn't say anything. She didn't have to. As the door clicked shut behind Tyler, I felt something inside me shift, not relief, Not closure, something heavier, something final. And I knew the hardest part wasn't over. Not even close. The courthouse in Lucas County has this echo to it, an old, tired echo, like the building's heard every kind of lie a man can tell and still isn't surprised by the next one. When I walked in on the morning of the hearing, wearing my best flannel and the same boots I'd worn to Margaret's office every week, I felt that echo settle in my bones, felt the weight of it, felt the history of every man who ever had to stand up for himself when nobody else would. Margaret walked beside me, a small woman with a spine made of something stronger than steel. She didn't talk much on the way in. She never did before a big moment. She just gave me one look, the kind people give before you step onto a battlefield, and said, "We're ready." I nodded, though my mouth was dry. Inside, the courtroom was colder than it needed to be. A few people sat on benches, strangers waiting for their own cases, a couple attorneys flipping through notes. And then Tyler, sitting at the far end, hunched over, staring down at the table like the grain of the wood held all the answers he wished he had. He looked smaller in that room, not physically, emotionally, like a kid wearing guilt that didn't fit right. Elaine sat behind him, hands clasped in front of her mouth. She didn't look at me. Couldn't, maybe. I didn't blame her. When the judge came in, a tall man with a tired face and the kind of patience that comes from decades of watching families break apart, everyone stood. The echo of that movement, the quiet rustle of clothes, felt louder than it should have. The judge read the case name, shuffled a few papers, and said, "Let's begin." Margaret stood first. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't grandstand. She simply laid out the story. A grandfather with a lifetime of savings. A grandson with access to his home. Transfers made in the middle of the night. A forged signature. A false police statement claiming dementia. A guardianship petition delivered under cover of darkness. And then the recording. She didn't play all of it, just enough for the words to fill the room. Tyler's voice, my grandson's voice, saying, "Fine, okay, I took it. I took the damn money." No one said a word. Not even him. When the judge finally turned to Tyler, the boy couldn't meet his eyes. His hands were shaking. Maybe he thought he'd talk his way out. Maybe he thought he could spin one last lie, but the truth had wrapped around him too tightly. "Tyler," the judge said, voice steady, "is there anything you wish to say?" For a long moment he just sat there, breathing slowly, staring at the floor. Then he lifted his head, eyes red, face pale, and looked right at me. "I'm sorry," he whispered. Not loud enough for the room. Loud enough for me. My throat clenched, but I didn't respond. I couldn't. I didn't trust what might come out. The judge spoke for a while after that, words about restitution, consequences, court supervision, repayment plans, mandatory financial counseling. He talked about accountability, about breach of trust, about how the law doesn't turn a blind eye to elder exploitation, no matter who commits it. But what I remember most wasn't the sentence. It was the silence that followed. When the gavel finally fell, the sound echoed through me like a closing door. Final, heavy, irrevocable. Tyler was led out a few minutes later to meet with court officers. He didn't look back. I don't know if that hurt or helped, maybe both. Elaine approached me slowly. Her eyes were glossy, her voice barely held together. "Dad, I don't know what to say." "That makes two of us," I said gently. She wiped her cheek. "I never wanted this." "Neither did I." She nodded, small and sad. "I'll make sure he pays it back. Whatever he's ordered to do, I'll help him do it." "He needs to do it himself," I said. "It's the only way he learns." She closed her eyes like the truth stung. "I know you're right." We didn't hug. We didn't argue. We just stood there, two generations caught between love and heartbreak, and shared the quiet. Margaret touched my elbow lightly, ready to go. I nodded, yeah. And that was that. Outside, the sky was bright, blue in a way you only get after a cold front clears the air. The wind carried the smell of distant rain, and my old Silverado waited in the lot like a worn-out friend who'd stuck by me through more than its share. Margaret shook my hand. "You did good, Jack." "I don't feel good." That's because you're human, she said. Justice isn't meant to feel clean. It's only meant to feel true. I nodded, unsure what to do with her words but grateful for them all the same. When I finally got home, the house felt too quiet, too still. I set my binder on the kitchen table, right where this had all begun. I made a cup of coffee, sat in my usual chair, and watched the steam rise. $93,000 gone. Some of it I'd get back slowly, piece by piece. Some of it was just gone. But money wasn't the real loss. Trust was. And trust doesn't refill like a bank account. I don't know if Tyler and I will ever speak again. Maybe time will soften the edges. Maybe it won't. Some wounds scar over clean. Others stay tender forever. But I survived. I fought. I didn't let him take my life from me. He tried, God knows he tried, but he failed. And in the end, that's the truth I hold on to. Not victory. Not revenge. Just survival. Just dignity. Just the simple fact that an old man stood his ground. I sat there for a long while, the house quiet around me, and whispered something I hadn't said out loud in years. I made it. And that was enough.